Ndị be anyị ekeneni m unu ọzọ n'ụbọchị nke taata. Asịrị m unu ka ọ dịrị na anyị na mma. Asị m na ihe adị ka echi na echi ada agwụ agwụ. Ndị si na-esoyela ihe a bụ Igbo Media, bụ ebe anyị si wee na-ewetara unu ya bụ ngalaba ozi a dị nnukwu mkpa anyị si ka anyị gosi unu gbasara maka ihe na-eme na Igbo community and obodo anụ anyị nọ n'ime ya. Dịka o si dị, ọ bụ na nke a bụ mbọsị izizi ị na-ezite chanel anyị bụ Igbo Media, gbaa mbọ rinne ka ị sọbskraịbụ and share ya ka o rute ndị ọzọ aka. Maka na infọmeshọn anyị na-enye unu bụ ihe unu ga-ama gbasara maka ihe na-eme n'obodo a, anụkwunu mara ka unu si akwado na ya bụ ife bụ ya ka anyị si ka anyị drọpụrụ bifo anyị gosi unu ihe anyị ji maka ya wee bịa. Ị ga-esi ya bụ ife anyị ji maka ya wee bịa, ị drọpụrụ anyị alụ gị ife iche gbasara maka ya bụ ife ndị niile ekwu n'iru akwụkwọ. Alright, over to you, sir.
Or because you just want to defend the interests of tenants. What are the details of that bill? And how does it also protect the interest of landlords?
Thank you, Ruben, and good morning to everybody. First of all, let me tell you my background in case you don't know, or some of you might not know. I spent over 35 years in England studying and working as a lawyer and traveling all over the world in the process. So I understand how things are done. So when I prefer solution to the problems of Nigeria, I talk from an informed position. Over the years, some things that I've learned and I know that works elsewhere. For example, the issue about the payment of rent a year or 2 years in advance, or even payment of rent in dollars, that is almost like an abomination. But I'll come to that later, because that's part of the problem that we have, that I hope you give me the opportunity to dwell on. The issue rising from the rent payment is that it is manifestly unjust for anybody to demand for people to look for rent deposits or payments of 1 year or 2 years. Nigerians don't earn much. The salary scale of Nigerians is abysmal. It's not comparative with so many other societies. So where do you expect them to get rent, money to pay for 2 years? I mean, why do you have to put Nigerians through that hell? It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Again, as I said, in UK or America, it's just 1 month in advance. 1 month, only 1 month. And so anybody can look for any accommodation and be able to afford it. So it is as simple as that. If you insist that people should pay rent the way we're carrying on now, what it means that people have to lie to get that money. People have to steal to get that money. People have to do all manner of bad things to get that money. You've turned Nigerians into beggars. I know that as a matter of fact, because I've had every day of the week, every month, there are a deluge of people making demands, and more than half of those demands are to do with rent. So I know. And the idea is to establish an agency. This agency will regulate and enforce any laws that will make about payment of rent. Not just the payment of rent, but also to do with the administration of those lease agreements or rental agreements. The fact is that for this to work, all properties in Nigeria must be registered, whether developed or not developed. You see, that's another issue entirely, because in Nigeria we have no database of things. We have no statistics. So it's difficult for anybody to plan. But this is required, this idea of having every land in Nigeria to be registered, whether developed or not developed, is also to help the landlords. Because if we have lands that are registered and you have an agency that is managing the history of everybody in terms of rentals, whether you're a poor person or a rich person makes no difference, because there are houses for everybody that are on rent, short-term, long-term rentals. So what it means, in essence, is that for the landlords at least, they will know where they are with the tenants. And for the tenants also, it will be a relief that they have this limited obligation on a monthly basis. Everybody can look for money and pay on a monthly basis. But beyond that, I must say this, that the agency will also mandate or rather the law will mandate every landlord and every tenant to, within 2 weeks of signing the agreement, to register it with the agency. So you register your tenancy agreement with the agency. The same obligation that the landlord has is what the tenant has. And the failure to do this has some penalties as well. So we just need to start managing our society better. As it is now, everybody is just on their own. The landlords do whatever they like. The tenants are out there. And of course, this has multiply effect if it is done properly, because most of the banks, lenders at the moment, don't lend. They don't lend because they don't know the history of the landlord, of the tenants who might want to take a loan to pay rent. The tenants are everywhere. But the bottom line is that there must be a record that is consistent, that is acceptable, that is verifiable across the country. When this is done, everything will fall into place. Okay. The landlords will be able to, receive their money from the tenants into an account where the taxman will also be able to determine how much tax is payable. Currently, no, landlords don't pay taxes arising from occupation of the houses. Okay. Okay. So governments are losing money. State governments, federal governments, they're all losing money because there are no records. So we need to have a credible system that will work for everybody. I just feel that this is a very, very important process because it protects the landlords, it protects the tenants, it protects the banks,
Senator,
it protects the governments as well, because governments have...
Can you hear me, Senator?
Yes, I can hear you.
Very good. I mean, fabulous idea.
Yes,
love it.
Yes.
Love it, love it, love it. Very good. I mean, more than long overdue, I should say, for an idea like this, and I like it. But a couple of things I would like to put forward as other arguments I've heard landlords make. They say the reason why they collect this rent in advance is the fact that when you factor in the land and the cost of build for them and the attendant level of inflation, it takes about 10 years for you to get to a marginal level of return on your real estate. And because of inflation, they charge a year at least to be able to hedge inflation, to have the money at hand. And when you look at the inflation as it is today, the rate of things in January is not the rate of things today. So that's some argument they make. And that's one side of it. What would you like to see as regards that argument and the narrow way out? But secondly, should also, this your idea, should it also coincide, and probably is this something you want to take up, it should also coincide with taking up a bill as regards changing the Land Use Act. Because that's where the problem is. No property rights in this country. The landlords can be malleable with their land as much as they want to. Everything is still vested in the hands of the state. Is that something you can, put up for consideration and think through? Let's just think through it and have a debate this morning on that. Those two ideas.
Well, look, the Land Use Act is another story entirely, and it affects all of us. So nobody is disadvantaged by it. All of us are in the same pool, as it were. So if my colleagues and I feel that we should look at it and review it, we will do so, particularly now that the Constitution Drafting Committee has been put in place and I am in that committee. So these are some of the things that we have discussed that might be at the front burner for us. But coming to the issue of how landlords can recover their investments in property development, that shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue at all. You know, landlords have their investments, and let me just be sarcastic a bit here. A lot of landlords in Nigeria, how did they make their money? Where did they get their money to build those houses? Ask yourself that question. Have you ever thought about that? You know, majority of the houses in Abuja belong to people who are in government, directors, PAMSECs, and all the rest of them. So, you know, they should be grateful that they had the opportunity to do what they've done, building those houses, and governments are not after them. And so talking about recovering an investment is not an issue for me. I am concerned about the consumers. My major thrust in all this is about the majority of Nigerians. You know, the average ratio is about 50 tenants to one landlord. You know, so let's focus on the interest of the tenants. They are the ones who are put through hell to look for money, to pay money in advance, money that they don't have. As I said before, they go borrowing, they go lying about
but
their
the landlords too go
situation.
borrowing to
They
build
go,
them. But sir, with due respect, I know you were trying to be sarcastic.
Let me
Every
tell you
landlord.
this. Yes,
hang on a minute. It's not every landlord
there are
that
very
depends on government money or steals government money to build houses. There are landlords too that they have debt currently.
There are
in the
very
bank.
few.
There are real estate companies and there are landlords that have debts in the bank too. I mean, it's just to balance the conversation. There are those that have debts in the bank that they cannot recoup their money.
I know that. I know that, but it's an investment. They've chosen to invest in that sector. It's just like those who invest in transport sector or invest in agri sector. So they have done those investments, but that does not mean that the larger population should also bear the brunt of what is happening. Of course, the economy is an issue. Yes, I agree with you. The economy is an issue. And so those landlords that have earned their money legitimately, of course, they deserve to recoup from the rentals, which is why they went into the investment in the first place. But all I'm saying that over time, profits would normally come. It doesn't come in such a short while. So we should allow this bill to scale through, and you'll see a lot of difference. Because at that point, every person who wants to rent a place will have an option. You know, just imagine the difference between raising 100,000 naira to pay monthly or raising 2 million naira to pay for a year's rent. So it is a lot of difference. And we must think about our people, the consumers. Currently, the way things are, nobody cares about ordinary Nigerians. And that is why many people are homeless. Many people are homeless. Many people who are in their 30s are still squatting, living with their parents. Many people who are abused violently are unable to seek for an alternative accommodation. And of course, the government is not able to provide low-cost housing as you expect in other civilized societies for the people. So there are many issues, and these issues will be resolved, at least partly resolved.
Senator, if you can hear me, talking about those issues. First, you are not alone in defending the interest of, poor people who need to have a right to shelter. Former Minister of Works, former Governor of Lagos, Mr. Babajide Raji Fashola, SAN, is also of the view that rent should be collected, monthly. And that in any case, there are many houses that are unoccupied because people can't pay rent. The Lagos state government is also, working along that line. But there are issues that I want to draw your attention to. First, the right to own property is a constitutional right, Section 43. says you can own in Nigeria either movable or immovable property. Now, 2, tenancy is a contractual agreement between landlord and tenants. So how do you legislate, relationship in a contract between 2 parties? That's one question. The other question is, okay, this proposed bill, existing law doesn't show that law of tenancy is under exclusive legislative list. That's why some states like Lagos have their tenancy laws. So you've talked about an agency. Now, how would that agency function? Is it going to oversee houses in all parts of Nigeria? Because that's one question. It's one thing to have the law. It's another thing to be able to implement it. And then, of course, that implementation is very important. How do you implement it? Because you can't have a federal agency that is running a registry for all houses, every property in the whole of Nigeria.
As you said before, from the beginning, that all properties are invested in the government, isn't it? So whether it's local government, state government, federal government, let's not be, bogged down with legal arguments as to whose right is it and whose entitlement it is to make those laws. Just like, take for example, the Debt Management Office. Debt Management Office is here in Abuja. It's a federal government agency, but also after the creation of Debt Management Office here in Abuja, they have encouraged every state to create their own Debt Management Office, and they work hand in hand. There is no problem about this because land is land in Delta or in Lagos or in Maiduguri. What we just need to do is to regulate the way things are done. And once a federal government agency, takes the lead, other agencies that will be put together at the state levels will follow suit. They will all work hand in hand to make this possible for the interest of the people. And of course, your other question about whether, or rather, you were asking about how
the law will be implemented.
Law can be
yes.
Implemented. Yes, it is very simple. And also, how does the government come into private contracts? Look, government is government. Government regulates everything. Just because we live in a quasi-liberal society doesn't obviate the fact that everything should be regulated. Everything should be regulated to the extent that it protects the interests of the people and for the people. I mean, every government is there because of the people. So if you don't regulate any sector, you are creating problems for the people. Whether it's a tenancy, land and tenancy sector, whether it's the aviation sector, there are regulations, and those regulations are needed to make things easier for everybody. If you don't regulate this sector, what you're asking is some kind of anarchy. So a landlord can wake up and go to the tenant and remove the roof and say, you've not paid the rent, you must go. Or the tenant will say, okay, I'll go, but I'll burn down the building. So there has to be some regulation that is for the interests of both parties. I mean, when I talk about both parties, the landlords and the tenants.
Okay, Senator, let me just ask a follow-up question, and it's as follows. 1, many of these landlords may be faced with a situation whereby you will have a tenant. Government has not paid his salary. This is the month of March. Many people have not received salary for February. Some have not even been paid for January in the month of March. So you have your property, you put tenants there, you expect them to pay at the end of the month. They come to you and they tell you that government has not paid them. What should the landlord do under such circumstances? If the landlord takes them to court, under existing tenancy laws, it will take maybe about 10 or 12 months for the landlord to be able to evict that tenant. So the man will have his property because there is a law that says only collect at the end of the month. The same government that is regulating has not paid salaries. If government wants monthly rent, should we not be looking at government doing low-cost housing? Government can build houses for the poor, give them apartments there, and collect their rent on a monthly basis. How about that, Senator?
Mm-hmm. Ruben, you talk like a landlord. You talk as if you're an advocate for land and property owners, and this is crazy. You know, somebody like you should be at the forefront of advocating for the masses. You know, not for elites like yourself. You know, this is the problem, Ruben. I can tell you this immediately. The landlords are more comfortable. The average landlord has one or two properties. But this is why this agency that I'm proposing is so important, because part of the requirement is that there will be a court. There will be a court established to deal with tenancy matters judiciously and expeditiously. You know, so the issue of a matter being in court for 12 months or 2 years or 5 wouldn't arise, because those courts are there to dispense justice as quickly as possible. It is actually part of the proposal, and because I had foreseen the difficulties in prolonged litigations. So what we need to do, let me repeat again, is for government to regulate this sector. This sector is not regulated at the moment. That's why you see some highbrow property owners asking for rent in dollars, for example. That is surely illegal. That should not be condoned nor encouraged. Okay. And this also, of course, I wish we could talk about the economy more, because property is a huge part of the economy. On average, I think the income from properties and the tax therefrom from the rentals should be no less than 10% of the GDP of any nation. But in Nigeria, this is hardly the case, because most landlords don't declare their tenancy income from tenancy arrangement, because there are no regulations really to this effect. Okay. So there are many benefits in trying to put this together.
Okay. So Prof, Senator, Lagos is way ahead. There's something called the land use charge, sort of like a tax on your land and your real estate in Lagos. That one applies. So there's some tax regime and all of that. But Dr. Bat is not talking as and I'm speaking for him now because I know he's not talking because he doesn't love the masses. But we are looking for practicality.
You should speak for yourself, my friend.
No, we're looking for practicality of solutions. And that's why I was asking the questions too about hedging against inflation by the landlords. I mean, I want everything well for the poor man in the country. But we must also look at practicality of those that invested their hard-earned money. And if you talk to some landlords, those that took bank loans, that are dying of high blood pressure now as we speak. And they are landlords too. And those are...
And by Daron Lineno, Yabukwa Igbo media, I see when I would take on Nupozia do Kemba. The guy see Konunqua, and the guy see Nabambo, I would ike in a new update. Be but stomach if any men are unable by and then what over in Canazo. Or Yabunqua, I put on. And I can name is here. I was at the Kibiabo. You watch a year kita in Runina Biafran Prime Minister. Go against Zoku, no dinkegi. And Chukota Morgan. Kali will detail in here. Mako Kia can see name is he. What a bear equity and the boyano. What a by Slynol. But a Babylon Ned president, a Babylon vice president, nothing. And the new Muyindi na Megasquano, Umuna is so good about Famba. Mako Kiva, they make it this year, Adrozi, Asimo getting a message or the Carlo. Aratos the email. Negodin Kobodo City. Came a nwanne anyị nwoke bụ Maazị Nnamdi Kanu na mkpọrọ akwa maka ndị Igbo. Gịnị ka ihe ọjọọ mere? Maka ọ sị na n'Igbo ga-adị, maka ọ sị na anyị ga-adị, na anyị ga-adị ka echi na echi ada agwụ agwụ. Ọ nwere ihe ọzọ eji jide ya? Jụọ onwe gị ajụ a. Gịnị ka eji jide Maazị Nnamdi Kanu? Ọkwa maka ọ sị na Igbo ya adị. Biko ọ dịghị ka iwe chetara ife a bụ Igbo midia anyị na-asụ n'onu be anyị, ọnụnụ be anyị ka anyị na-asụ. So biko ọ bụ na ede anụ Igbo iwe ewe na gị, ọnụnụ be anyị ka anyị ji akọwa ihe na-eme ebe a. Ka ego ọkwa na ya anyị na-ekwu bifọ unu ekwe n'iwe ka ife onye ndu melụ, ọ sị na ya na-eme mgbomgbe ndị Igbo na-abịa n'alụ, ọ na-ewute ya. Simon Ekpa pinie anyị agbaba ya mgba ka e mere obedient movement. Akwa wuru okwu Maazị Nnamdi Kanu kwuru before ejide ya, they will never give you that president that seat. Akwa doro na ya na Peter Obi winere mana nyere ya. Gịnị ka nsị ya bụ? Mba, Igbo mana na ife maka oke esi na-ekwuzi okwu ọka ife ga na-esi na-emezi. Ọ bụ na ịkpọrọ onwe gị mitin, chụkọ onwe gị ọnụ, jụọ onwe gị ajụ a ka ebe ịkwụ n'obodo a bụ Naijiria. Ajụ nchọkwa onye ọbụla bụ onye Igbo na-ege m ntị n'elu akwụkwọ a, jụọ onwe ya, na na-ejicha onwe gị ya bụ ife isaa ya. Ọ gwụna ka m n'ọnụ. Ihe a bụ Igbo midia. Daalụ n'ụmụnne.